Hello, I'm Bob Walker, and I'm representing a committee of the Chamber of Commerce to bring information about our United States Senate race to the people of Dublin, Lawrence County, surrounding counties. And I'm happy to have with me today David Perdue, who is from Warner Robins and is a candidate for the United States Senate seat that Senator Saxby Chambliss is giving up at the end of this year. And we're happy to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
This election that you're going to be in will be May 20th.
That's correct.
And there are maybe 7, 8 candidates presently in the race
That's
for the
correct.
Republican
That's right.
nomination. And I believe I've read that there's some 5 or 6 Democrat candidates for the Democrat nomination. And so somebody going to the poll on May 20th or before May 20th, if they early vote, they will either select a Democrat ballot or a Republican ballot.
Right.
And then if there's a runoff, that's what they have to vote in that party election.
That's right.
In the runoff.
That's
When
right.
will that be?
It's July 22nd, I believe.
July 22nd. Okay. So that's a long time between the
It is.
May 20th.
It is, actually. Yeah.
And so
Well, and that tees it up then for November, which is really what this is all about in the first place, right?
That's
This
right.
is all the
Yeah.
preseason almost, and then we get into the real issue debate. I can't wait for that.
well, good luck to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, tell us a little bit about your education background.
Well, my mom and dad were teachers. I grew up in Warner Robins, as you said. I was born in Macon, but they were teachers. I actually met my wife when I was in first grade at Lindsay Elementary School. My dad was a principal. My mom was a 5th grade teacher. And I worked, on the family farms, that sort of thing, and then worked my way through Georgia Tech. I got a bachelor's in engineering. Later came back and got a master's in engineering from Georgia Tech. So that's pretty much my background, but I've been listening to education my entire life with my mom and dad, for sure.
Well, let's go into then maybe your business and professional background and history. Tell us about that.
I've been very blessed. I got out of Georgia Tech with what I thought was a great degree, and I went to work with a company called Kurt Sandler Associates. And my first assignment, they were a consulting firm. My first assignments were here in Georgia, actually, in Cochran and Eastman and Moultrie, Georgia, working in apparel manufacturing plants, textile manufacturing plants. And later in my life, I ended up helping Sara Lee open their first Asia headquarters in Hong Kong and moved my family to Hong Kong. We've lived in Europe a little bit, lived in Asia. I've worked around the world in most of my career. Later in my career, I was asked to be president and CEO of the Reebok brand, and we executed a very significant turnaround in that company. Great brand, great people. And then my last job was I was chairman and CEO of Dollar General, another great company. It was a 3rd-generation family company, 70 years or more company in business. A lot of stores here in Georgia, and I was chairman CEO there, and we got refocused on the mission of the company, which was helping families get from payday to payday. And today, we sold that business, and today I have 3 partners, and we have a small trading company that we're exporting goods made in America to China and the rest of the world.
Well, that's very interesting. Have those kind of background history of international business?
Well, it's unusual. In Congress, if you look at the Senate, for example, one of the reasons I'm doing this is that in the United States Senate, we have fewer than 10 people, about 10 people who have any real business experience. And I just think that in the environment we have today, with the crisis being the debt and how to get the economy going to help solve that debt crisis, I just felt like we needed more people in the United States Senate who had any experience in the global free enterprise system.
I agree. Yeah. What about public service background?
I've never run for any office. I've never been in politics. I was chair of the National Commission on Adult Literacy for a few years when I was running Reebok. And we worked very closely with Washington trying to get things done to help with the literacy issue and workforce development in this country. So I learned a lot about interfacing with the bureaucrats and the politicians in Washington during that period of time.
You have a famous cousin?
I do, actually. He was governor here for 2 terms. I'm very proud of Sonny. Sonny and I grew up together. He and I about the same age. Well, he's a little older than I am, but he was we're cousins, but we grew up in a way that I just admired him as an older brother almost. His dad and my dad were the 2 oldest in a very large farming family. And so, as you might imagine, Sonny and I grew up really kind of working with each other on the farm and playing ball together and just having a great life there in Bon Air and Warner Robins.
Yeah, wonderful. He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, good,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
He still has one.
He still has one.
No. Sonny's approval rating in this state is doing very well. In fact, when I first got in this race, some of my name recognition last year we thought might have been confused with Sonny. And so we tested it again in January this year, and it actually dropped a little bit. And the joke was that they finally realized I wasn't Sonny. I'm proud to tell you now, though, it's back on my own. So.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we got a lot of issues facing us, and what are the main issues you think that are important for us to focus on as we go into an election year?
This is the most serious, I think, election. It's an off cycle. But outside of a presidential, this to me is the most important cycle we've had in a while. And the reason is, I believe with all the noise you hear out there, we have one crisis right now. It's our debt and the fact that we can't get this economy going to help solve that debt crisis. We have $17 trillion of debt. We all know about that. But we have over $85 trillion, some estimates as high as $100 trillion in addition to that, coming at us in future unfunded liabilities related to Social Security, Medicare, and pension and benefits for federal employees. Almost a third of what we've been spending the last 5 years is borrowed, and we just can't continue to do that. The president put a budget out for next year, last week, 2 weeks ago, and in that budget he gave a 10-year plan. In the next 10 years he sees the deficit going from 17 or almost $18 trillion to $23 trillion. And that assumes a 7% growth in federal revenues. Now, no one in this race, and nobody in Congress really, is talking about that right now. That's the reason I got in this race.
From a business perspective.
Well, with so few people in Congress, certainly the Senate, who have any hands-on experience in the free enterprise system, the 10 people who have the business experience have actually been in politics on average longer than they were in business. So I just see some of the policies, Obamacare, Dodd-Frank, what the EPA has been doing the last 5 years, is really thwarting the natural tendency of our capitalistic system to want to lift up and grow right now. We pumped $3.5 trillion from the Fed into this economy, and yet this economy is not growing. 1 in 5 people today are either unemployed or underemployed. And 80% of the jobs, almost, of the jobs we created last year are part-time jobs. You know, I go around these small towns, Bob, and I ask people, how many of you know somebody that's either out of work or in a job that's not at a level that they had in their last job? And every time, every single hand goes up. And then I talk about how many of you have a child or know of a family that has a child who has graduated 4-year college and has now moved back home because they can't find work. And every time, hands go up. That's not what we are about. I mean, this is America. We just, this administration's policies, backed up by a Congress that's letting this president do his own thing, basically, has led to a point that this economy is not growing the way it should be right now. That's. I think I can bring value to that debate in Washington.
All right. I'm going to ask you a few other questions, and what will be your agenda when you take office on, what would it be, January something or other, early January of 2015?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have 2 silver bullets. I don't think many people go to Washington. They all want to save America. Then they get trapped in the culture there, and I don't know what happens to it. But I'm going for 2 reasons. One is I'm going to fight for term limits, because I think that's a real crisis up there right now. And secondly is I'm going to fight to bring the growing the economy into the debate, the gridlock that we have right now between what the Democrats want are tax increases and bigger government, and Republicans want spending cuts and smaller government, and we've been gridlocked at that at least 13 years, since 2000. And I think the way out of here is to interject the economy, like we did in the 80s. We grew our way out of that problem in the 80s. I go around the state and I ask people, how many of you remember a double-digit mortgage? Hands go up. Well, we're in a different crisis today, but it's just as serious. It threatens our national security. It threatens our very way of life, I believe. Yeah. So those are the 2 issues.
Well, the term limits, I think Saxby Chambliss has served 2 6-year terms.
Yes, sir.
Before him, Max Cleveland served maybe 1 6-year term, and before him, Sam Nunn had 4 6-year terms for 24 years. Mm-hmm. What do you think for the right length of time for somebody to serve it?
Well, when you look at the Senate, there are 36 senators who have been in Congress, either House or the Senate, in elected office for more than 30 years, 36, and one gentleman's been in there for 54 years. There's a bill before the Senate since 2010 that would limit the terms in the Senate to 2 terms and 3 terms in the House. I think that's about right, but I would go one step further. The double dipping from the House to the Senate, I think, is where these long careers get built. And I think that needs to be changed. I think 3 terms in the House and 2 terms in the Senate is long enough.
Well, I think Saxby had 3 or 4 House terms before he became senator.
Something like that.
So something in that range that you're talking about. Yeah.
I just think that this form of government, these 3 branches of government, were intended to be balanced, and one thing that helped maintain that balance was to have fresh blood every now and then rotate into the Congress. And when you have this many congressmen and senators up there for that length of time, I just think we've gotten away from the founding principles that our founders had. I just don't think they ever foresaw the rise of the career politician. It was too onerous to serve back then. And today people go there and that's their career. That's their method of making a livelihood. And I just think it's gotten too comfortable for them, frankly. I mean, they have a different pension plan than most of us. Their health insurance privileges are different and get to carry on longer than ours. And I just think they need to live under the same rules that they make for the rest of us. And I know I'm not in the minority on that one. A lot of people in Georgia are telling me that right now.
That's exactly right. How can the trend toward more people dependent on welfare and public assistance be reversed?
You know, the crisis that we have right now in America is that we have the smallest percentage of people working since the Jimmy Carter era. Now, that's a tragedy. I know a lot of those people. The problem is that the administration's policies and this Congress have put a program out that is keeping small businesses from going. Dodd-Frank needs to be repealed. Obamacare needs to be repealed. Those things are keeping the economy from growing. If the economy grows, demand for jobs goes up, and guess what happens? More people go to work. I mean, people want to push people into work. Well, you have to have jobs. You have to be trained for those jobs. And what's missing right now is that we don't have the economy lifting, but primarily because of bad government policies. Let me give you an example. Right now we have $6 trillion on the sidelines in this United States economy. Now, it's a $16 trillion economy, but $6 trillion are not at play, largely because of bad government policies. We have over $2 trillion in foreign banks. These are U.S. profits because we're the only developed country that double taxes repatriated profits. Now, no one in this race is talking about that. That is an easy thing to correct. The second is Dodd-Frank has pushed more money on the balance sheets of small banks unnecessarily and is not being moved into small businesses to create loans, to create jobs, and get economic growth. And then you've got the Russell 1000, the largest companies in the country, have $2 trillion on their balance sheet because of the uncertainty that's created by the EPA, Dodd-Frank, and Obamacare. So we have an entire economy that is confused right now because of this inconsistency that's being put out by Congress and by this administration right now. I'm a business guy, and I know I don't care what the rules are, just don't change them on me in the middle of the game. Yeah. And that's what's been happening.
Yeah. We have the medical malpractice lawsuits, I think, is an issue, and what would be a good solution to improving medical care and the cost of medical care?
You know, the problem with Obamacare, I go back into the 2000s, 2008 period when the Bush years, when Republicans were pretty much in charge. And, you know, I don't remember them putting up their version, our version of a bill that would solve the transportability problem, the insurability problem, the high-risk pool problem, and the rising cost of health care problem. But you know what? Obamacare doesn't address those either. 6 million people almost have been canceled so far, their insurance. Even though the president said if you like your insurance, you can keep it. My personal insurance, my wife and I have individual coverage, and our policy was covered. And to get new coverage, we had to have vision, hearing, drug rehabilitation, and maternity. And our rates doubled.
Yeah.
Now, only 2 million people have signed up. And he said 5 million this week, but those people haven't really gone through the system yet. Only 2 million people have signed up. So that means we've gone backwards. Almost 4 million people.
As I've heard it, that people signed up, and a lot of them haven't paid yet.
That's the point. You know, and the people that were this was supposed to get insured, are not signing up. The 30 million or so, whatever the number was, that was supposed to be insured through this process, many of them are not signing up right now. And so the intent of the law was, who can argue with that? But the way it came out was just wrong. It needs to be repealed. 70% of small businesses are stopped hiring or have cut back employment because of Obamacare. It's the largest tax increase on the middle class in our history. I had an event last night, and a young man came to me. He's got a medical device manufacturing company in South Georgia. He said, David, we just had to lay off 40 people in his factory. It's a manufacturing company in South Georgia. He had to lay off 40 people because of the tax increase on medical devices of 2.5%, 2.25%, 2.75%, I believe. He says, nobody's talking about that, but it just slammed our business. It's rampant. If we had a referendum on Obamacare today, in a popular vote in the United States, I can assure you it would not pass, and here's why. Of those 6 million people who have had their insurance canceled, half of them are Democrats. There are a lot of politicians on the Democratic side who are going to be running for re-election. You think they're going to run in support of Obamacare this year? I don't see it. And so I think that we've got an opportunity to make some changes and get this thing out of there. What I would recommend is primarily, let's legislate what the president's already done. He delayed the employer and the employee mandate. Let's go one step further. Let's make it legal and legislate a delay until January 1, 2017. And what that would do is allow us to have a true referendum in a presidential election on Obamacare and have a popular vote on it. And I think you'd see the American people would throw it out tomorrow.
The part about the medical malpractice.
Yeah, I agree. We work in extremes sometimes, and the problem is I think we certainly need to rein that in. If someone has, a legitimate claim, there should be ways to do that in the courts. But when it is taken advantage of, and you have doctors leaving the practice because of unreasonable legal cost, and by the way, who pays for all that? The patients. We all subsidize that. We pay for that. And it's one reason why the health care costs are going up. And that's the other thing that Obamacare never addressed was the rising cost of health care. In this country right now, partially because of Obamacare, we're losing about 10,000 doctors a year net. That's a dangerous position to be in. My mother in Warner Robins, she lives in Macon actually, her doctor just retired, and we're having really a very difficult time helping her find a doctor that would take Medicare. I mean, that's a serious issue in this state. And it's going to be even bigger around the country as more and more people get into the Medicare, program.
Well, we appreciate you being here today, and our committee has invited 5 of the Republican candidates to come to Dublin and interview the same set of questions. You are the second one to be here, another one will be here tomorrow, and I think one more after that, and one we haven't heard back from. On the Democrat side, we've invited several of the Democrat candidates, and the leading candidate, it appears to be Michelle Nunn, and she has decided not to come and interview until after May 20th. So between now, which is late March, and May 20th, these interviews will be shown on local TV.
Good.
And then after that, we'll be down possibly, maybe the 2 Republican candidates in a runoff. I would say that would be fairly likely, wouldn't you?
I think at this point, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of polls out right now that have shown that we've actually moved from last into the lead right now. But, we're an outsider. I've never run for office before. And we're treating it as an underdog. I mean, we've always looked at ourselves as underdogs in this thing, and we continue to operate that way. I like our message, and it's really resonating, Bob. As an outsider, people are fed up with this nonsense in Washington. And they're looking for someone other than the people who created this mess to try to go there and straighten it out. And I think that means they need an alternative from the outside. And that's what I'm offering in this election. And it's one thing that's showing up in the polls right now, very dramatically.
I've read those. Yeah, absolutely. Very recently.
Yes.
You're having good numbers.
Well, they are. But, polls are like shirts. We change them every day. So, but we're in there fighting hard. And I like our position right now as the outsider.
Yeah. So between now and July 22nd, then at that point we will be down to 1 Democrat and 1 Republican candidate, and then the general election will be November 4th, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah. So I encourage everyone who's not registered to vote to go and vote.
Please.
And certainly early vote or vote on May the 20th.
You can actually get absentee ballots starting March 31st.
Yeah.
So
Okay. March 31st.
this is a critical race, and everybody needs to get their vote in. This is a very critical race, not just on the Republican side, but just for our country. We're in a very dangerous time right now. We need to let our vote count.
Locally, we have some other elections that will be coming up at that time. We have some county commissioners up for re-election, and we have some school board members for election or re-election. So this will be a very interesting race for people in Lawrence County and the surrounding counties. I encourage everybody to take it seriously and to watch our United States Senate candidates on this TV interview.
Good. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Here.
Thank you. God bless you.